Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's April 5th, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day, presented as always by LifeWallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. And Matt, I thought we'd start off today talking a little bit about players that are popping in spring practice, because I know that's what everybody's interested in. We've been covering spring now for 3 weeks. There's 2 weeks left. And I know everyone's, wants to know what individual players are making advanced progress. So I've spent a lot of time the last couple of days working a bunch of sources and getting some insight into that. So I thought that we would discuss it a little bit, combine what we've seen ourselves out of practice, and kind of put it all together for everybody here today on Good Morning CaneSport. So let's start with the quarterback position. I mean, everybody knows Tyler Van Dyke has been progressively getting better since the beginning of spring practice. It was a little controversial at first, the first few practices, when I said on the message boards that Jake Garcia was right there with Tyler practicing at a comparable level. And Jake is still doing very, very well, Matt, but Tyler has amped it up. And he did suffer an interception in Saturday's scrimmage, got bit a little bit by Kevin Steele's scheming and some of the confusion that can create. But all in all, I mean, from everything that we've seen and everything we've heard, Mario Cristobal said it himself. He thinks Tyler Van Dyke will be one of the premier quarterbacks in the country this fall.
Yeah, there's nothing you said that I can add to. The thing that concerns me on offense and to some extent on defense is, and somebody posted, I didn't even think about it until they posted it. They said, who are the leaders on offense and defense? Sure, you could say, and they said aside from Tyler Van Dyke, and you could say Tyler Van Dyke's a leader, but he's not like a De'Ara King kind of leader. Tyler is a quiet, I wouldn't say shy, but he's quiet, he's studious. He's not a rah-rah, in-your-face, Ken Dorsey, even De'Ara King type of guy. He's more of a behind-the-scenes kind of leader, I guess, so to speak. And I was trying to think of other leaders on offense. Somebody said Will Mallory. Will Mallory's not really a leader. The offensive line, it would have been, there's no Corey Gaynor type guy on the offensive line, one of those fiery, these are, DJ Scape's not a leader. I'm sorry. Nice player, not a leader. Zion Nelson, very quiet, like DJ, not a leader. Nice, great player. But these are not leadership type guys, which is super interesting to me. And on defense, you can maybe point to Gil Frierson, but he may not even be a starter. Defensive line, I can't think of someone who's a leader right now. And in the secondary, you could say James Williams if you want to, but the guy's played 1 year. He hasn't really proven a lot, and he's not, I'd say he's an on-the-field leader, but he's not an in-the-locker-room leader. And those in-the-locker-room leaders, they need to develop. So as much as you want to talk about the players, Gary, to me, the leadership void, if you want to call it, is one of the more intriguing side stories nobody's talking about this spring, because I've seen a lot of leadership from the coaches, not a lot from the players. And but yeah, what you said at quarterback's exactly right, and you can move on to running back now that I've said my piece about the leadership void.
Well, and I'm going to touch on, with you bringing that up, I'm going to touch as we go forward on a couple guys that I think have a chance to emerge as leaders. And in that vein, I'm going to jump directly. We'll come back to the skill guys. I'm going to jump to the offensive line, the guys up front who are getting a huge focus for obvious reasons this spring, and are really responding relatively well to the Alex Mirabal, Mario Cristobal tag team tandem of coaching that they're getting there. And the guy that has been probably the greatest surprise, maybe of anybody on this football team in spring practice, is Justice Oluwaseun. He's a veteran guy. He's played a lot of college football. Most of it was at UNLV, but he is a guy that's now blossoming in the weight program and is really responding well to the coaching that he's getting. And he has become a leader on the offensive line.
As a player or as a person? I'm not talking about as a player. I'm talking
about both, Matt Shodell.
Okay.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it, so maybe you know something I don't.
I'm telling you that this is what I'm hearing, that he is a guy that has really stepped it up in the last couple weeks. And I feel pretty confident saying that he is probably going to secure a starting spot if he keeps it up. I mean, he's in a knockdown, drag-out fight with Logan Sagapolu over there for the starting job at right guard. But I think Ja'Kai Clark will start at center. I think Jalen Rivers will start at left guard. Zion Nelson most likely will start at left tackle. But he's lagged behind a little bit from what I'm hearing. And they're looking for him to pick it up quite a bit. Like, Zion Nelson is a guy that needs to step it up here in the last 2 weeks of spring. And then, of course, DJ Scaife would be out at the right tackle theoretically, depending on how it goes. But, they can also move maybe Justice out to right tackle and play Logan at right guard. So those three guys are probably fighting for two starting spots on the right side of the line would be the way that I would put it. But yeah, so, Justice is an older guy. He's very well-spoken. We had an interview with him last week. And those of you that saw that interview, have a grasp for how well-spoken he is. And he's got the makings as an older guy of being a leader in the locker room, in my opinion. And so, Matt, offensive line, any impressions that you've had?
Well,
other than that the second team is not real good. You notice I didn't mention anybody other than the top six. They're trying to develop John Campbell as a guy, but he's got to step it up.
Right. So listen, they bought in Logan as a transfer, obviously, and he got promoted actually over Justice the practice before the scrimmage at right guard, and then they moved Logan to left guard, where most people assume Jalen Rivers will be the starter. So I guess they're cross-training guys, and I guess this will be a battle that goes into the fall. I'm not sold yet that this offensive line is great. I know you said some things that maybe make people very optimistic. I'm just a guy who got to show me. The offense wasn't real good in the scrimmage. I have a feeling a lot of that had to do with the offensive line. I don't think it was Tyler Van Dyke throwing bad balls.
A lot of it was the secondary, believe it or not. But we'll get to the secondary later.
Yeah, but guess what? When the secondary does well, Gary, why is that? Rush throws, a lot of pressure, things like that, right?
And good coverage.
And that's really why, the secondary got a lot of flack last year for ranking over 104th in the country in pass yards allowed, but a lot of the defensive line wasn't getting the job done, right?
But if you think back to the last practice we were at, receivers weren't getting open in that one either.
Well,
remember all that 11-on-11 work we watched, and the offense wasn't getting anything done. Nobody was open, and the quarterbacks had to keep scrambling.
Yeah, and they're throwing the ball. Every pass was 10 yards or less, and if they tried to look downfield, they just couldn't get it off. But again, it's so hard to tell in the spring. Coaches can sort of be fooled, right? The coaches were fooled last year and thought DJ Scaife was a starting right tackle merely because their ends weren't good enough to show what Alabama immediately showed in the first two series that forced them to put DJ Scaife on the bench the rest of the game.
He had to try to block Will Anderson, man.
Right, and that's the concern, is how good is the defensive line, and is it making the offensive line up its game, or is it just two average units that keep just going against each other and sort of winning some and losing some? That's the concern, right? So you hope they're both elite level. I don't know if they are. If you think if journeyman Justice Oluwaseun is the answer and the best offensive lineman on this team, I have a feeling this is not going to be a real good offensive line. That's just me speaking. I don't care how many gains he's made in 2 months in the weight room. I know what he is. He's undersized. He's not the most athletic guy. And he's not one of the top offensive linemen in the ACC. That's just what he is. He's good. He knows what he's doing. He's a veteran. But they need better. And if Logan can't beat him out, and if Jalen can't beat him out, then that may not be a really good sign.
He's going to be a starter. He'll be one of the starters at guard.
I know you said that. Yeah, I know you said that.
There's no doubt about it. So, Logan, Justice, I'd say Scaife are three guys battling for two jobs over there on the right side of the line. And who plays tackle, who plays guard?
Scaife's a tackle, right?
Scaife's a straight tackle. But
you're talking about Rivers.
Remember, Justice came in at right tackle for Scaife in the Alabama game.
Yeah, Justice is not a tackle. They can't.
I don't think so either.
He's not. They haven't used him a tackle once that we've seen all spring.
Yeah.
But no, it's going to be him, Logan, and Jalen, or they 2 or 3 spots, or they bring in a transfer, because they're already looking at, the kid from Oregon who's in the transfer portal might come in, and he's a guard. So
yeah, so we might as well throw that into the conversation right now. There is a story on the website about Oregon's John Dennis, who went to South Dade High, broke a lot of hearts at Miami when he decided to go to Oregon to play for Mario Cristobal when Mario was at Oregon. Well, now he's in the transfer portal, and our speculation is that it's got to be with the purpose of coming home to Miami. And I would look for that to happen in the next week or so, I would think, with John Dennis declaring his intention to become a Miami Hurricane. All right. So let's talk about running backs for a minute. No Chaney out there, no Knighton really, doing much here this spring. So all the focus has been on Henry Parrish, Matt. And from what I've seen, he hasn't disappointed. I mean, he's dropped the pass here or there and stuff like that. But you could see that this is a guy that's going to be able to get things done in the fall. Yeah,
Parrish, I thought, looking at this film and when he first came in, I thought, maybe a second-team guy behind Jalen Knighton, sort of similar guy, probably working in behind Jalen. I didn't think he'd be a starter, but you watch him out there, and he actually is more powerful than Jalen. He's got a little more, a little more leg strength, if just that burst that you see, right when you get the ball. So I think he's right in the mix to be a starter. The big question is going to be if they can get a bigger back like a Chaney who can get healthy and stay healthy, or Trevante Citizen would be the ultimate answer if he can come in and be that all-everything guy. He's fast, strong. If he can pass protect, which people in high school say he's way over the normal level of being able to pass protect as a high school kid, then maybe he'll be the answer. So this fall is going to be very interesting because right now it's basically Henry Parrish and nobody. So, no, I'm not trying to throw any shade at Thaddeus Franklin or anything, but, or Cody Brown, but that's what it is. Henry Parrish is at a different level compared to those two guys. If it's just those three, then Henry Parrish would be the featured back all season. But I think there's going to be a very interesting battle looming this fall. And just like Josh Gaddis did last year, it wouldn't surprise me if we have 2 backs that are splitting a lot of the carries again. Maybe one a bigger back and one a smaller back. But then again, do you split the smaller back reps between Parrish and Knighton, or is one of them emerge and the other one transfers? Because, when you look at the numbers that are on this roster, one of these guys is going to realize, hey, I'm a third teamer. Hey, I'm a fourth teamer. I don't know that all these running backs stay for the fall.
Well, how about the 5th and 6th teamers?
Yeah. Well, the third and fourth teamer, here's my point. Whoever the third and fourth teamers are on this team can start at another ACC team or high-level team. Yeah. There's no doubt in my mind about it. John Chaney can start.
Cody Brown, for example, I'm already looking for my new destination. Thad Franklin's going to have a decision to make, I think. We'll see what happens. But there's going to be movement. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and there's 5 high-quality backs on the roster. Someone's going to be 4th and 5th team.
No doubt. All right, so the tight ends, Will Mallory's out for the rest of spring. He'll be back for the fall. But that's giving Elijah Arroyo and Jaleel Skinner a chance to really blossom here in spring practice. And we've seen them performing very consistently. I would think you would agree, Matt. And Dom Mammarelli has also been making some noise as a blocker, believe it or not. They really like the work that he's doing in short yardage situations and things like that. So he might be earning a little bit of a niche for himself as a short yardage tight end. But all in all, Matt, I think you would agree the tight end position looks in pretty decent shape for the fall.
Yeah, I mean, you can pick Justice Oluwaseun as your surprise of the spring, whatever. I would pick Elijah Arroyo, and
because he was good when he played last fall.
He wasn't Justice. He was okay. He was nothing special. You're saying he made a big jump up, is what you're saying. He's definitely
I'm talking about Elijah Arroyo.
Oh, Elijah, yeah. Elijah Arroyo was a backup who played very limited reps last year, and he's reshaped his body completely this spring. It would not surprise me at all if they use a lot of 2 tight end stuff, especially if a third receiver doesn't emerge. From what I've seen, it's really the Jacoby George, Xavier Restrepo show in that third spot. Ladson has had some ups and downs, some bright moments, but some ups and downs. And the same goes for Keyshawn Smith. So it wouldn't surprise me with what Elijah Arroyo can bring. And if Will Mallory is back healthy and is doing what he can do, he had a very up and down year last year. Remember, Will Mallory, first 6 games, he was awful last year. But if he's playing well, I just don't see how you keep Elijah Arroyo off the field. I mean, he looks really good. And then Jaleel Skinner, too. I mean, for a freshman, he's a freak. He needs to get bigger. But this tight end position, I just don't know how you only can play one tight end for most of the game.
Well, they won't.
I can't imagine.
All 3 of those guys are going to play. There's no doubt about it. And I think you're right. You're going to see 2 of them on the field at a time. You're going to see the return of the H-back, kind of like we saw with Chris Herndon and David Njoku. I think you're going to see that returning big time to the Miami offense because it makes sense. That's the strength of your personnel. And Josh Gaddis, if there's one thing he proved at Michigan, is he will scheme to his personnel. And I think you're going to see that this fall. Now, Matt alluded to the receivers. Probably a little bit disappointing of a spring. I mean.
What, you're saying something negative? This is the first negative thing I've heard you say all spring.
Well,
you're kidding me.
You're not
horrible then.
I mean, Jacoby George has been decent. Xavier Restrepo,
I think Jacoby George has been really good.
Is the best of the receivers, the most consistent, getting the most catches, the most reps. I mean, every time you turn around, Restrepo's out there on the practice field doing something. I mean, they love Restrepo. They love him as a player. They love him as a leader, as a locker room guy. So Restrepo's going to be a part of the offense. There's no doubt about it. Jacoby George will be part of the offense, no doubt about it. Who else is going to step up at receiver? Matt mentioned Ladson coming in from Clemson. He hasn't seemed to jump out very much. And then you've got the field after that. That's they're all there, but I don't think anybody's popping really so far this spring. I certainly haven't heard that any of them are. So Matt, the receiver position probably is a candidate for. Man, I mean, I know this is harsh, but could they be the most disappointing position group of the spring so far?
I wouldn't go that far, but
you're expecting the linebackers to do very little.
I mean, look, I'm not a guy who's only going to say the positive guys.
I'm not saying the worst positions group on the team, but I'm saying like linebacker would probably classify as the worst position group on the team, but we weren't expecting anything of them. We were expecting with an elite quarterback like Tyler Van Dyke for these receivers to blow up this spring, and I'm not sure that's happening.
What I was starting to say before you interrupted me was I wasn't talking about the position. I'll always tell you guys who I think is doing well and who's not. And to me, one of the biggest disappointments of the spring is Brashard Smith. I don't know what happened to him. He to me could have been a guy that's like a Tyreek Hill type, where he could line up in the backfield and do a lot of those receiver reverses. He's just got such an amazing athleticism and explosiveness about him that he showed last year as a true freshman, and he just can't hang on to the ball this spring. I don't know what happened. He looks like he's in his head a lot. I don't know if the playbook's overwhelming to him or what's going on, man. But I thought privately, coming into this spring, I knew Jacoby George was going to be really, really good. I knew Xavier Restrepo was going to be really, really good. And I thought after those two guys, it could have been Brashard Smith as a guy who flashed this spring, who we were saying right now, like, wow, who saw this coming? Brashard Smith is like, blowing up. And he just hasn't. And maybe that's a microcosm of the receiver position overall. It just seems like they're all a step slow. And maybe it's because of whatever routes they're being asked to run. Like we talked about the other day, receivers have wound up in the same spot as a tight end. They're running the wrong routes sometimes. I've seen Jake Garcia literally in one-on-one drills where receivers running route. He won't even throw the ball because the receiver ran the wrong route. He just throws it into the ground or just walks back to the huddle because they ran the wrong route. And I don't know why. That the offensive coordinator is the receivers coach. Like that should be the position of all the positions where they understand it, because they're literally with him in not just the offensive meetings, but the position meetings. So I don't get it. I think they'll be fine. It's not Tyler Van Dyke's fault. Jake Garcia's been overthrowing some guys, but I don't think it's really Jake Garcia's fault. I think Jake Garcia is clearly frustrated. The last few practices we've seen, he has not been the same as he was the first 6 or 7 practices. I think it's gotten in his head a little bit that these guys just, his second team offensive line is struggling. His receivers aren't getting open. And it's frustrating for a quarterback when you're trying to compete and show new coaches that, hey, I'm as good as Tyler Van Dyke or better, and you can't do it because your receivers are letting you down and your offensive line's letting you down, and he hasn't gotten the 1 reps. I think he's very frustrated. That's just my personal opinion. And that's just how I see it. I think the receivers will be fine. I think the offensive line has to hold up and give the receivers time to get open. And I think the receivers have to be a lot crisper in their routes and understanding what to do and stop dropping passes.
I think they'll be shopping for this year's Rambo in the transfer portal after spring practice. That's my read on it.
If there's one that comes in there, no doubt about it.
Need a number one receiver. Need a number one receiver really, really bad. And if they can find one, if one can be enticed to be interested in transferring to Miami, I think it will be known in all the circles that all these coaches have that Miami is in the market for a number one receiver. Come on down to South Beach, and we'll see what happens. Can't tamper, but there's ways to get that word out, and
the way it's done, by the way, is a coach can call a high school coach, and a high school coach can call a kid he used to coach who's now at a different school, and that's the communication path. That's totally legal. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's 100% legal.
Yeah, so that's how it's done.
We would love to find a number one receiver.
It's usually done through high school
coach, my guy who went to Georgia or went to here or there, he might be interested in coming down. All right,
you just can't talk to the recruit, and you can talk to the coach or a mentor and have the word transferred, and then you're sort of, that's the go-between method. And listen, if they can get a top receiver from some other program and to come here and convince them that it's a better situation here, I think there's no doubt they would take a top receiver. I think they have to if that's the case.
All right, so there's our read on the offensive side of the ball. We're going to talk defense in a moment, but first let's hear from our friends at LifeWallet.
We here at LifeWallet take security very seriously. Our data security team is working constantly to make sure that your data is not accessed by anybody who you don't authorize.
Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah, I'm
Excuse me, sir. Thank you.
I have a conversation, and he's thinking about it, and I'll be talking to CC. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
We use leading technology standards like biometric data to make sure that only you have access to your data and your identity is protected. LifeWallet gives you access to your entire medical history and information at the touch of your finger, so that it can save you time and can save your life.
Data transfer complete.
Still love that one the best. All right, let's talk a little defense now, Matt. What I'm hearing on that side of the ball, we know the linebackers are challenged. To me, linebacker, it's a question of how quick can Wesley Bissain develop and get on the field, because he's probably the best linebacker potentially on the roster right now. It's going to be a question, can he get out there, in his first year, and we'll see how that goes. Flag is in there fighting. Keandre Smith is in there battling. He had an interception in the last scrimmage. That was a good sign. Austin Cave, he's out there battling. But look, the linebacker spot is going to be one of the more challenged on the football team. There's no doubt about it. And I don't want to belabor it right now. It's still a work in progress. They're learning a new system, being challenged real hard by Charlie Strong. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better coaching situation for those guys. So, to me, it's like, what are they going to look like when they show up in August? To me, that's the issue with linebackers. Now, defensive line, the guys on the edge, Moss, Harvey, I guess Chance Williams to a degree. Those guys have been doing a decent job, and they got a lot of pressure on the quarterback in the scrimmage on Saturday. Leonard Taylor's been popping a little bit on the inside. But Matt, the combination of coaching there with Joe Salavea, Jason Taylor, Rod Wright, these guys are getting coached, and I like Jess Simpson, but I mean, this is more resources. This is a little bit more juice. Jess Simpson was more of a laid back guy. Joe Salavea, I mean, my God, I mean, every day you just get more video proof of this guy. Here, look at this one.
Hey, you know what time it is?
Come on down here. Hang out with the Kane family and Big Joe all day. The 305, that's where it's happening, is going down. All work, no days off. Boom!
I love that. Boom! I love it. Just love it. Look, is the boom going to make these guys better? No, but you could see the juice. You could see the energy that Joe Salovey is bringing to this job, and then you add the expertise as an analyst of Jason Taylor, et cetera. So, Roderick coming in as the defensive ends coach. So Matt, it's there. The opportunity is there for these guys to get better. None of them are proven for sure. And we don't know who's going to rise to the top in August. We still don't know, even after 3 weeks of spring here. But I think when you look at the coaching they're getting, that you can at least feel like there's a chance up front.
Yeah, I guess. The fact that I think from what I heard, Cyrus Moss and who was the other one? One of the other small defensive ends.
Thomas Davis is a guy. That's a name. I should have already mentioned him. That's a name that we're hearing a little bit lately.
Yeah. The fact that those two guys are the most disruptive in the scrimmage bothers me a little bit.
Yeah. I'm not predicting by any stretch of the imagination that Thomas Davis is going to be a star in August.
I mean, look, they took 3 transfers already in the defensive line for a reason. I wouldn't shock me if they take another.
Yeah.
They need help up front on defense badly. Leonard Taylor is running with a second team most of the spring. That's also, guess what, Leonard? That happened to you last year with the prior regime. He admitted last year he just didn't understand the playbook. And I think to some extent that's his issue again, because he's got to start. The fact that he hasn't been able to step up and say, this is my job and this is my defensive line, because he's the most talented guy on this defensive line, period. So that's troublesome. But again,
they'll learn a whole new playbook.
Yeah, right. And again, it's the spring. There's no, I'm bringing up some, people always call me negative. I'm negative because I point out some of the issues I see. Maybe some other people don't like to do that. I don't know. I could just sit here and say how great everything is.
I've been pointing out the issues.
I didn't say you.
Am I some of the people that you're talking about? Oh, okay.
I didn't say it was you. But Jafari Harvey and Chance Williams, like, you sort of know what you have. Like, they don't look different to me now than they did at the end of the season. In fact, just overall, the defense looks just small. I think they lean down. I think it's by design. They need to. This is a defense that the coaching staff recognized. We're not a defense that's going to bully people and be big and lumbering and just run people over. So we got to get fast and then add weight on the right way. And it's sort of back to square one in a sense like that, because, not to throw the previous strength staff under the bus, but this was not a defense that you could say had an identity last year. It wasn't, what would you say? They weren't physical up front. They weren't fast up front. They were just there. The secondary, they were undisciplined, if you're going to put a word for it, but very talented, athletically talented. And the linebacker core just was there sometimes and not there sometimes. Very, very inconsistent. So that's what this coaching staff inherited. It's not this coaching staff's fault that that's what we're seeing on the practice field, right? It's what they inherited. And almost this entire team, other than the freshmen and the transfers, is what they inherited. And in 3 months, you can't just all of a sudden turn, I don't know what to use, turn sugar into a cookie. I don't know. I guess you could turn sugar into a cookie with a few ingredients. I've never done that, but my wife has. So if you're my wife, you can do it. But if you're Mary Cristobal, it takes more than 3 months.
Yet the defense dominated on Saturday when they scrimmaged. So,
yeah.
What do you make of that? Not really sure. I mean.
Well, again, so it's a question. Was it because the offensive line was that bad? Or is the secondary that good all of a sudden, even though they're missing Tyreek Stevenson? I find that hard to believe.
Well, they are.
Or is it more likely an issue with the playbook and not being able to run a lot of plays? And the defense has seen, remember, the defense has seen all these plays over and over again for 9 practices. So it's not like they're reinventing the wheel here.
Yeah, it helps.
The defense should and almost always is ahead of the offense in the spring. Even in the past, that's been the case. Even when Miami's defense wasn't good, it was always back and forth with the defense winning scrimmages here and there. Even when the defense was awful in the last few years, even in the Mark D'Onofrio, don't pass out on me, Gary. I said the word Mark D'Onofrio. Yes, I did. Even in his defenses, they would win in the spring. It's the spring. The defense has a lot simpler job to do in terms of stopping an offense. It's just learning everything. And that's just the way it's supposed to be. So a lot of it's just inherent spring defenses ahead. A lot of it is offense absorbing a new playbook. A lot of it is a lot of new players on offense. And I think some of it is the offensive line, I don't think is real good, especially the second team. And I think there were some problems, especially at offensive tackle this last scrimmage.
Hey, by the way, did you ever talk to your two interior designers about that new picture to replace the horse behind your head?
Listen, if you want to make a charitable donation, okay, to the Matt Shodell Fund, I'll consider maybe taking it down for a half hour a day.
I still think, you know, that's the one, man.
Nope.
I mean, I'm not going to say his name, but this is one of
we know his name.
This is one of our elite subscribers that created this painting.
His name is Sebastian Picasso. Okay, now it's out there. We've told the world who it is.
Sebastian Picasso. It looks so much better than that horse. I don't know. I mean, keep working on it. All right.
No.
Listen, I mean, I just like staring at this horse. We're now 31 minutes into the show, and I'm staring at this horse. It's brutal.
Listen, it's by a famous artist. It depicts American history. Okay,
I understand, but this is a sports show.
So that's like that predates.
This isn't the History Channel. This is
it is the History Channel.
This is CaneSport.com TV.
It goes like this, okay? If you're going backwards, it goes Larry Coker, Butch Davis, Dennis Erickson, whatever the order is. I already screwed it up. And then that painting, okay? That is in the beginning. So if you make the timeline for all the Hurricane coaches in this direction, blah blah blah, Coker, Erickson, whoever, Jimmy Johnson, Howard Snellenberger, blah, blah. And at the very end of the timeline is that picture. It's the beginning of the timeline that began the Miami Hurricane dynasty, Gary. Have some pride in America and the Miami Hurricane dynasty, okay?
Just talk to the two designers, okay?
No.
Let's keep working on that. All right. The secondary. I talked about it earlier. I'm going to talk about it now. This has been the best group on the football team in spring practice. Unless you want to count the quarterbacks. I mean, I think the quarterbacks are pretty good. But this group, and I don't think you're just getting used to Coach Adai being here and don't really know much about him. I'm not saying you, man. I'm talking about the Canes Nation in general. He's a new name for everybody. Probably haven't heard very much about him. He was at Georgia before here. This guy is one of the elite defensive back coaches in the country. There is no doubt about it. Okay. You're going to be fortunate to have him here for a year, maybe two. I mean, he is going to get a coordinator job soon. This guy is the real deal. He is going to be a future head coach, most likely. You're going to see this guy fast tracking it up in the college coaching world. He's having a big impact on these kids in the defensive backfield. Now, keep in mind that Porter and Tyreek Stevenson, who are your leaders in the clubhouse, obviously, to hold down starting jobs in August, are missing spring practice. Now, when they come back, they're going to have some work to do. And here's why. Corey Couch is thriving under this new coaching and is having a sensational spring practice, okay? Isaiah Dunson at cornerback is having a good spring practice. Al Blades is having a sensational spring practice. So now all of a sudden,
by the way, Al Blades is also working at Star,
I know, yeah, they're moving him around. But here's the thing: the point I'm making is you're going from thinking that the cornerback position is a little bit of a trouble spot to now you're going to have 4-5 guys there that you're going to feel confident that you could put into the game, and so that's coming on real well. And then the safeties with Kevin Steele working quite a bit with them to help out Coach Adai with the DBs, because Charlie Strong coming into the staff allowed Steele to, Charlie Strong he's got the linebackers, okay? And it's one of the biggest challenges of his coaching career, with all respects to what he did at Texas and South Florida. But he's got the linebackers. So Kevin Steele didn't have to coach the linebackers now when Mario hired Charlie Strong. Well, Kevin Steele's now working with the safeties and helping coach and letting Coach Dye focus on the corners. And let me tell you something, it is working, folks, because Avante Williams has been sensational this spring. James Williams has been pretty good, needs to mature. They're looking for a little more maturity out of him. You know, I mean, he's still got a little youth in him. They're looking for him to sort of become a little bit more complete in that regard, but he's been playing well. Brian Ballon is a safety that's been doing pretty well. So you put all this together, and that's why when they go to scrimmage, there's nobody open, and the defense is dominating, and the offense is getting frustrated, and the body language is falling apart, and Mario's having to light into them, and all these things that we're seeing out there right now. It's all built around, Matt, what these defensive backs are doing.
Yeah, look, the secondary, I would have told you even before the spring, the secondary is going to be the strength of the defense. I'm not sure that it would have said a lot. But again, it's so hard. Like, the secondary is playing well, but is it the receivers not understanding? Like, you see receivers just in 7-on-7 and 1-on-1 even struggling. Just a quarterback throwing them a pass, they're struggling. So is the secondary balls. Yeah, so is it the secondary being great, or is the receivers running a step slow, trying to think what they're supposed to do?
Both. Or both.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So it's just, I'm not ready to make any declarations, but I think Tyreek Stevenson has no concerns about his job. He will be the starter on one side. I do think Darryl Porter will start on the other side. I think Corey Couch has always had the ability. I think he really, when he lost his job to Marcus Clark, he went in the tank. I think the prior coaching staff didn't do him many favors. I've always thought he's an outstanding cornerback, especially in nickel. And I think Marcus Clark's very good. You haven't mentioned him. So you add the veterans, Al Blades, and, DJ Ivey. For whatever reason, DJ Ivey's that guy who always looks good in practice, and then you put him in a game, and he's like
I didn't even mention him. He's been doing okay.
He's been doing fine, but he has these mental busts in games that, like, how do you trust him when you've seen he was good in practice last year too? I remember last fall we're like, oh, DJ Ivey's poised for a real good season. Like, he looks really good, and then he gets in a game and he just like freaks out. And some guys are like that. Some guys practice better than they play, and some guys actually play better than they practice. And that's why you need these really great coaches who recognize that and can figure out, what happens to some guys in games. One thing that bothered me the other day, I saw James Williams. They were in full pads. They weren't taking anyone to the ground or whatever, but you're supposed to, thud or whatever. And it was James Williams, basically guy. The running backs running full speed at James Williams, supposed to thud the guy, and he just like stuck out his arm and tapped the guy and then backed off. That's not what you're supposed to do. He just didn't look like he had any interest in getting in the guy's way. And we saw that last year sometimes where he had no interest in trying to wrap up or learn the technique. James Williams has to mentally get in this thing because he can be the key to this defense. He can be, that playmaker, that Ed Reed guy who can score 4 defensive touchdowns in a season, who can make the defense so excited just with one amazing play, whether it's a sack or an interception or a big hit or just a tackle on a third down. And he has to show more interest in learning the tackling techniques and actually perfecting them versus I just want interceptions and touchdowns. You got to do the dirty work, man. And yeah, I think Avante's look great. I think the secondary is going to be fine. I think James Williams, this coaching staff is great. They will get his head on straight, man. But James needs a little readjustment there. He really does. I mean, I saw some worrying things in the last few practices with him, and I'm sure he'll get them straightened out.
So the other day we're watching practice, and they're doing situational scrimmaging, and they go into the 2-minute drill, and it's 4th down, and Mario Cristobal calls for the field goal. And the field goal unit goes out there. They're emulating.
By the way, Gary was way too excited. He was yelling. He was yelling at the field goal unit was coming out there. What were you yelling?
No, it was afterwards.
Okay.
You're
very excited, though.
We try to have a little fun out there. So the field goal unit comes out. They're emulating an end-of-game situation, and it's time for Andres Borregales to win the game. What do you think happens?
You're asking
he
me?
misses the kick. He missed the kick. There was the one moment in practice that Andres Borregales had, and he missed the kick. The Canes lost.
But the good news is the Canes also won because they were playing themselves.
Got to make the kick, man. You got to make the kick. Come on, Andres. Got to pick it up, man. You only getting a couple opportunities of practice.
He's one guy I'm not worried about. First of all,
he's got to make that kick.
He's got no competition for his job. He's got a great line. By the way, that was about a 47-yard kick from what I
don't care. You got to make it every time. You got to make it. You got to win.
About 10 yards. It would have gone 57 or 60. So, and it was a very stiff wind, by the way. You
got to make it. You got to make it. He's a second-year kicker now. He's got the leg. He's got to make the kick.
It probably didn't help him any that he saw you jumping up and down under the field goal post, yelling at him to make the kick before he even kicked it.
I was not doing that. That is absolutely not true. Don't anybody believe what he just said. I would not ever do that. Anyway, so there's your update on what's going on this spring and the areas that are doing great and the areas that need to be worked on. Who's jumping out, who's not, and I hope you guys have enjoyed that this morning for a little bit of a change to Good Morning CaneSport. All right, now the Canes are returning to the practice field this morning. Guess who's not going to be at practice today?
Who?
This guy.
Are you firing me? I'm fired?
Matt Shodell gets called to jury duty and, as you could tell, is not pleased. Okay. The God knows where the judge is. The judge is missing from the courtroom. They go a whole day in jury duty and don't even pick a jury yet. And now Matt's got to go back to the courthouse tomorrow morning. Nice looking courthouse, though. I mean, that's a good courtroom, rather. I mean, I like the decor. Looks pretty nice. But he's got to go back to court tomorrow morning and still doesn't even know if he's going to be on the jury, and he's going to miss practice, believe it or not. So, but we'll be out there and we'll try to carry on so that you guys don't miss a beat, and we'll see if the team looks better coming off the scrimmages situation on Saturday, and if they continue taking steps forward here this week. This is a big week. You're going to have a couple of practices, probably another scrimmage Saturday, and a couple more practices, and then the spring game, and then that's it, man. Then it's off to more off-season training. So urgency is picking up out there. We saw it in the last couple of practices that we were out there, and I'm sure it's going to be amped up even more now because the players are going to know where they stand because the coaches will have graded the film from the scrimmage, and guys are going to know. The ones that aren't doing well are going to know they better pick it up. So we'll see what happens starting later today at practice. All right, couple recruiting stories on the site this morning. We got an update on 2024 running back Rod Gainey of Tampa Bay Tech. He visited the other day, and he's still looking for an offer. It's early for him, but we've got an update on him, and we got an update on 2025 Dillard defensive line Armando Blount, who also was at practice on Saturday. He's young, he's raw, but he looks like he's going to be good. The Canes are on him early. We've got an update on him. So that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. Hope you've enjoyed the look at where the team's at this stage of spring practice. For Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. We thank you for joining us. Look for that practice coverage later today, and then we'll see you again tomorrow on Good Morning CaneSport. Have a great day, everybody.